am I sitting on it? Oh, crap. It is SportsCenter with Jay and Dan, brought to you by McDonald's, the at-home edition. Jay and I, hundreds of kilometers apart, so we're following the rules. Hey, last week, the CFL, they said to the federal government, we need money if there's not going to be a season, and here's how much we need. And on Thursday, the CFL, they went to Parliament Hill and painted a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah, Dan, Randy Ambrosie, the commissioner of the Canadian Football League, spoke to the Standing Committee on Finance in the House of Commons, the parliamentary committee. Did it, of course, via his computer. And as you mentioned, painted a very bleak picture of the CFL's financial state as of this moment. He says the league needs $30 million immediately, and if the season is canceled, $150 million.
Governments coping with COVID-19 for reasons of public health that we totally support have made it impossible for us to do what we do. Our best case scenario for this year is a drastically truncated season, and our most likely scenario is no season at all. We are currently operating on the money our fans, and to a lesser extent the broadcasters and sponsors, pay us in advance for games. The day is fast approaching when we will have to cancel several games and perhaps the season. And then our fans and our partners will have every right to demand their money back. At that moment, our financial crisis will become very real and very big. We have told the federal government we need $30 million in working capital this summer to keep operating and keep as many people employed as possible. It is very challenging to be precise on what additional help we might need because COVID-19 has literally created a world of uncertainty. Will we have games this fall or no season? What about 2021? Can we pack our stadiums then or not? But here's our bottom line. We want the support we need to get through this crisis and not a dime more. We support the decisions government have made, but their effects on our business is devastating. We just don't want it to be fatal. A ban on large gatherings means no revenue and no business for us. And we want to ensure it does not mean no CFL for the future. I don't mind telling you this is humbling, but the fact is we need support so we can be there for all the community groups that depend on us, so we can continue to deliver $1.2 billion in economic activity each year, so the CFL can continue to be one of those things that connects us as Canadians, something uniquely ours. Whenever it comes, we want our next Grey Cup, Canada's 108th, to be a place where we can all celebrate what we did to get through this, and that Canada is back. And thank you very much.
Reaction now from our CFL insider Dave Naylor and our senior correspondent Rick Westhead. Dave, let's start with you. You spoke to Randy Ambrosie just a week ago about his concerns, and he'd always take the positive spin. He always wanted to think in a positive manner. What's your reaction to the bleak picture that he painted in his statement today, especially concerning the strong chance of no season at all?
Yeah, Randy Ambrosie likes to call himself a pragmatic optimist, but you know, when you look at the challenges facing the Canadian Football League and where we are in the calendar and where the government regulations are across this country, the prospect of getting players across the border, I have conversations with people in different roles in the league all the time, and I don't think people in the Canadian Football League were shocked to hear that, because they understand how difficult this is going to be to pull off even a truncated season. And yeah, at the point where he's speaking to a government committee, I mean, there's no point trying to polish this off or hide any of the realities. That's the time to lay the stark, bare realities of the Canadian Football League in front of the people he was speaking to, and I think that's what he did, even though among fans and a lot of people who I think have had the attitude, well, you know, they'll get through this somehow, there's going to be a season in some way, you know, this may have been sort of a penny-dropping moment.
So that was the statement. Then, Rick, he took questions from MPs, members of this committee, and based on what we heard, it sounds like the committee is going to have a difficult time giving the CFL some money.
Yeah, at least if the you know, at least if the questions from the first two members of parliament are any indication to him, Kevin Waugh, a former sports broadcaster from Saskatchewan, you know, kind of went up one side of Ambrosie and down the other, talking about high unemployment, 8.6% unemployment now in Calgary. He talked about how deep-pocketed some CFL teams are, and cited a poll. We don't know if it's an informal poll or a formal poll. That's, I guess, really not the point here, but suggested that the majority of people in Saskatchewan don't want federal money to bail out the CFL. Then Peter Julian, an NDP member of parliament from British Columbia, jumped on. And he again talked about how deep-pocketed some CFL team owners are. What was, you know, the common thread that ran between those two members of parliament? Both criticized the CFL for not making the Players Association a more central part of its ask of government. Peter Julian even went as far as saying that the CFLPA should be invited to testify about this itself.
Well, I mean, this is one day and one hearing, but still, from what we heard, kind of a bleak outlook, certainly for the CFL in 2020, and who knows beyond that. Rick Westhead, Dave Naylor, thank you both.
Oh boy, tough news certainly for the Canadian Football League. Hopefully things work out for Randy Ambrosie and company. Dan, I want to lighten the mood just a little bit, because one of our NHL insiders had a birthday on Thursday, and I'm not going to give away who it was, but let's just say it was his 32nd birthday, so it could be anybody. I mean, it could be Pierre LeBrun, could be Bob McKenzie, could be Darren Dreger, or perhaps someone else.
Maybe the guy who least looks like he's in his 30s. Still guessing. If you're still guessing, it's revealed right now, I hope.
We say hello to our insiders again, Darren Dreger, Pierre LeBrun, and Frank Saravalli, as we sit and wonder, and the NHL continues to ponder how they will finish the season, if and when they can. Pierre, is there a favorite format that is emerging?
Well, I think what's starting to happen is perhaps some momentum. Now, what's happened this week is Monday on the Board of Governors call, James, Gary Bettman, I'm told, said that, listen, 16 teams, 20 teams, or 24 teams are all options for a playoff format at this point. Now, again, on Wednesday, in the return to play committee call, I'm told that 16, 20, and 24 were, again, talked about as options. But of those three, from talking to people around the league, both on the team side and also on the player side, 2014 seems to be gathering a bit of traction, the idea of a playoff format with 24 teams. Now, it's not everyone's cup of tea, and I spoke to some people who said, well, suddenly 24 teams, that means you bring in Montreal on the eastern side, you bring in Chicago on the west, the two 12th place teams. Those two teams were sellers at the trade deadline, and now you're inviting them in potentially to a playoff play-in. It's not for everyone. There's going to be debate right to the end here. But what we're really seeing is the idea that after really, really wanting to play out the regular season and involving all 31 teams, that perhaps those bottom 7 teams who clearly wouldn't have a lot of motivation to come back and play some regular season games and then shut it down again might be discarded, which would be just fine with them. But again, let me stress, nothing is decided. These are just the conversations that are being had between both sides this week.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that conversation, Pierre, you're right. And you could easily adopt a play-in format that trims 24 down to the traditional 16 playoff teams. And by doing that, you don't have regular season games. You have 3 to 6 play-in games. And that means you can get through the process more quickly. And the reasoning behind that would be the preparation for a second wave of COVID-19. If the NHL once again has to shut down in September, maybe October, maybe drift into November, there's a built-in break, and then they reset and get going on the 2020-21 season again as late as December. Now, the other issue here that the Players Association and the NHL are working through is, what is testing going to look like? How is this all going to work? Who is going to be tested? How many tests are going to be required? I mean, it could be a mammoth number of tests that are needed by the NHL and the NHLPA. And how quickly can you turn those test results around? So testing right now, guys, is an open issue for sure.
And how much will it cost? Frank, you talked about the financial toll on Tuesday, but all these expenses, is it worth bringing it back, considering there won't be fans in the stands if they do?
Well, that's going to be the key question moving forward, a cost-benefit analysis that the NHL and NHLPA have undergone. Look, when you talk about testing, 2 teams told me today that it could cost up to $20 per test to have a player or staff member tested. The question is how many teams are going to be involved when you start to do this math, how many people are going to need to be tested, how often. If it's daily, it's pretty easy to see these tests wind up in the millions, if not tens of $millions to conduct. And then in addition to that, how much does it cost to sanitize the locker rooms, the arenas that you're going to need to play in? So teams were telling me $1,500 per dressing room to be sanitized per day. They're still trying to figure out how the rest of the facility would need to be sanitized, but these are all mounting expenses. So far to this point, the NHL has determined that the juice would be worth the squeeze, but we'll see as these continue to add up.
One more big piece of news today, confirmed. Happy birthday, Frank, the silver-haired millennial, getting up there.
The big reveal at the end. Classic Duffy. We talk UFC 249 coming up. I should really walk somewhere because on Thursday, if I had one of those step counters on my wrist, it would measure about 40 steps total for the entire day. It was a crummy day, so didn't do anything.
All right, well, I'm going to make it a little bit better for you, Dan, because UFC 249 is coming up this Saturday. I know you've already ordered it, and I know you're going to be enjoying it, probably by yourself. But this is the exciting thing. The main event is a lightweight battle. And right now, I don't think it's a stretch to say, Dan, that the lightweight division in the UFC is the toughest division. I mean, you have the champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov. You have Dustin Poirier. You have Conor McGregor. And then you have the 2 guys who are battling it out on Saturday, Justin Gaethje, and maybe the most intriguing lightweight out there, Tony Ferguson. And please join us this Saturday on TSN for the UFC 249 prelims, which begin at 8 Eastern. This Saturday night. Then at 10 Eastern, you can catch the main card on pay-per-view. That would, of course, be the card that includes the main event between Tony Ferguson and Justin Gaethje. With more on that, here is our UFC panel.
Joining me now is our UFC panel, Aaron Bronsteter and Robin Black, and let's get to the main event. You've got Tony Ferguson against Justin Gaethje. Tony Ferguson, Aaron, has won 12 straight fights, yet he's overshadowed behind Conor and Khabib. Where does he fit in this division?
Yeah, in terms of this division, you look at Tony Ferguson, and I think that whoever wins between him and Khabib, if that fight ever actually happens, is going to be the greatest lightweight of all time. Tony Ferguson is one of the toughest guys to stop because he's so good on the feet and also so good on the ground. So if you take him down, you're in a world of danger. If you're on the feet with him, you're in a world of danger. There's no safe space when you're facing Tony Ferguson. And you're right, he is often overlooked when you think of the big personalities of the UFC, Khabib, Conor. But, you know, if anybody is going to be able to hang with Khabib, it's this man. It's Tony Ferguson. He's going to have to get past Justin Gaethje first. But if he does, he's got to establish himself as one of the all-time greats at lightweight.
Hey, Robin, Aaron just touched upon it. A lot of fighters don't like to be on their back and fight on the ground. Tony Ferguson loves it. Why?
Hey, man, it's just the truth of the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The game was designed so that when you're fighting off your back, you can be offensive. You don't just have your arms. You get your legs all involved, and then you can elbow from the bottom. That's what Tony Ferguson does. He incarcerates you underneath his legs and his arms. Then he can strike with the elbows. He can submit. It is an offensive position, and that is a truth that Tony Ferguson knows, and he attacks with confidence from underneath his opponent.
Guys, they say styles make fights. This is going to be a great fight. UFC 249 Saturday.
Coming up, the top 10 rants inspired by Dan's phone call with producer Tim every day.
I cannot wait for this weekend as TSN revisits the 1987 Canada Cup. The final best-of-3 series of the tournament between Canada and the Soviet Union begin with Game 1 on Friday night, 7:30 Eastern. On TSN 4 and 5, Team Canada's roster featured 12 future Hockey Hall of Famers, including Gretzky and Lemieux. Dan Kelly on the call, Lemieux ahead to Gretzky. just the action, the excitement in those games. This weekend's going to be great. This top 10 is going to be great because 18 years ago, Allen Iverson said some pretty famous words.
That's right, Dan. He said, we're talking about practice. And he said it 22 times in a rant to the press in Philadelphia. And he was coming off his MVP season. And, you know, I remember the first time I heard this, I thought, man, that's not a very good attitude for the leader of your team, one of the stars of the NBA. And now, Dan, as I get older, I realize that Allen Iverson was 100% correct. Correct. Star players should not have to answer questions about practice. So I guess that's why AI was upset. And I guess that's what inspired this top 10.
That's how I feel. Damn sick and tired of getting out-rebounded. 25 offensive rebounds. First time we block out, we get called for a damn block out. That's where I'm frustrated. That's where my whole frustration comes in, offensive rebounds. The entire thing came down to offensive rebound. They got every offensive rebound, we didn't get one of them. What else do you want to know?
I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get. Don't you ever talk about me. Crabtree, don't you open your mouth about the best, or I'm going to shut it for you real quick. LOB.
We're going to the playoffs and you're going to take out one of our best players because you couldn't take a hit? That's a joke. That's an absolute joke is what it is.
We've seen enough of this season as well.
I've seen enough of him that it's a joke. And we get a penalty on the play, that's a joke. That's the definition of a joke right there. Because he's reacting because he got hit and the officials don't see that? That is a joke. Suspend him. Get him out of the game. I've had enough of that. It's a joke is what it is.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sport. You play to win.
Looks like this team played with anger all day. Why, Bart?
For all you non-believers, disrespect us, talk crap about the defense like we ain't the third best defense in the league. All we hear is about their defense. They can't stop a nosebleed. 25th in the league, and we the one to get disrespected.
Congratulations. See you in Pittsburgh.
Can't wait.
The Bears are what we thought they were. They're what we thought they were. We played them in preseason. Who the hell takes a third game in a preseason like a We played them in the third game. Everybody played 3 quarters. The Bears are who we thought they were. That's why we took the damn field. Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were. And we let them off the hook.
All this technology, right? The technology and getting things right. The stubbornness tonight by the officials and by the league and Toronto, however it's supposed to work, screws us. It's ridiculous. I'm not taking any
I'm from the old school. I believe this. I would rather play with 10 people and just get penalized all the way until we got to do something else, rather than play with 11 when I know that right now that person is not sold out to be a part of this team. It is more about them than it is about the team. Cannot play with them, cannot win with them, cannot coach with them, can't do it. I want winners.
And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
We sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we're talking about practice. Not a game, not a game, not a game. We're talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that? And we're talking about practice. I know I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to lead by example. I know that. And I'm not shoving it aside, you know, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice?
Find out if all our practice made perfect. Next, in You Blew It.
Time now for Who Delivered, presented by Mick Delivery. May the 7th, 1995. The Pacers trailed the Knicks 105-99 with less than 30 seconds remaining when Reggie Miller scored 8 consecutive points in less than 9 seconds. Back-to-back threes and 2 free throws to lift Indiana to the win and stare down Spike Lee repeatedly. Reggie Miller always delivered. Which leads us to our very, very popular You Blew It segment, where we point out all the errors we made on the show. When I was introduced Aaron Bronstetter's essay about Tony Ferguson, I basically said the exact words that Aaron used in the first 10 seconds of his essay. So next time I'll watch the essay first.
Also off the top of the show, I said we live hundreds of kilometers apart. I feel like Trump when you do that. I said hundreds of kilometers. That was a lie. I don't know why I said that. We live 90 kilometers apart, 55 minutes door to door. So I need to be better.
There it is. I guess you actually just drove from my house to your house this past weekend. Like,
yes.
You'd think you would have remembered that.
Yeah, I stored my my summer tires at your house, so I had to grab those.
Yes. Well, I've got a big garage. It's it's one car, but that car is a smart car, so there's plenty of room for your tires.
Thanks. I really appreciate that. See ya.
Bye.